Hi everybody, we're going to be talking about some things that often get left out in design classes, and mainly what makes good web design. A lot of this you may have covered in your first class, but probably not to the extent that you need to. This is something that needs to be brought up probably every class, and because things change, styles change, what people think is good and what people think is bad varies from year to year. So let's take a look at a few websites and talk about the design and a look of them and what makes them a good design. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to probably one of the most simple but used websites out there. And as you can see, there's not a lot on here. You don't get overloaded with information. They keep it pretty simple. It's got a couple functions. It's got one main goal that all the customers use, and there's a reason they use it. And they just make it very natural, something that's easy to go in and use without having to read the instructions. You don't have to look at it a long time. You don't have to think about it too much. It's just a very simple website. And there's nothing wrong. Simple, actually, though, is probably one of the hardest things to do right. Because you've got less room for error and mistakes. You can cover a lot of things with flashy animations, colors, backgrounds, pictures, things like that. But pretty much simple. That's not so easy. One thing I want you to notice up here at the top, they have about 8, well, really 7, but they have 8 links. And these are main things that you might use besides the main function of the website. And this is a good design idea, that keeping the number of options between probably 5 and 7 is most commonly the rule for doing websites. You want really one main goal on the site, and then from there you break it up. So here we have our search function that they're going to use, and then we have some other options that they can choose to go into later. So, if I'm looking at images, it's going to take me there, and I'm going to have a few more images from there. I'm not going to be going into so many options that people get confused, but as I go deeper, it can get more complicated. So generally your first site, your first page, your first design, we're going to keep it pretty simple, and then as we go deeper into these, they can become more complicated with more information and more choices, because the people are invested and interested in what they're going into, and they don't care if they have a little extra content on there. They want that. That's what they're looking for. So that's kind of a good design. Another one I want to look at, it's simple, but it's not really a great website as far as what we're talking about. This is a web designer, and looking at his site, can you tell what he's doing? Pretty much we know that he lives maybe in Buffalo, and there's some weather going on. Okay, I get that, and I really kind of confused what the rest of it is. It looks like a blog. It really doesn't tell me. There's no information. We've got a little bit about the guy on the side here and kind of a freaky picture. If this is a self-promotion site and he spent a lot of time on this, basically I've got a kind of, and well, I'm not gonna say it's cruddy, but it's not a very attractive one to anybody who doesn't know him. So when you're creating sites, not necessarily that this is a bad one for him and his use, but if you're doing it for a company or you're doing it for e-commerce or things, make sure you've got a purpose and it's really obvious and easy to find out, something like that. We're going to look at another one. This is another person kind of promoting and having their stuff, and they've got some design features. They've kept it pretty simple. Here we got the 5 main links on the side. He's got a little motion animation, nothing too much. As he moves back and forth, his head changes position, so not a bad thing to kind of get your idea. And then if you read through here, you get kind of an idea what he does, and as you go in, you're going to find out more detail and about the site. So not a bad thing. Gets what needs to be done and tells people. And this is a little more of a business instead of a personal one. So we're looking at somebody that's trying to provide services, and they replicate the same links and they have consistency throughout the site. So that's a great thing as far as design. You want to keep the same kind of color palettes. You want to have the similar look and feel to it. You can move the navigation from the left and put it up on the top, and that's fine, but you want it to look like they all belong together. All right, let's go look at another one. This is kind of a so-so site. This is a local club using WordPress to deliver their pages. and it gets a little overwhelming. There's quite a bit of stuff shoved on the front here, but most people, they come in and they've got a main splash section they see with their links. There is some extra information down below that it's kind of it's a so-so site. And if you go into any of these, you can come into it, and this is another example of where the page keeps the same look but changes a little bit. Drop that big header, and now you'll notice it's just the navigation on the left, and that's more simple information, main links at the top, a little explanation, and keeping the same graphics. So a page that's all right, but it's not amazing. All right, let's go look at one that you may recognize as far as a site that you may have gone to. And this one, USA Today, has a ton of information on here. It's a little tough to digest it all, but generally when somebody comes to a site in this nature, they have a very specific purpose. They want to see lots of news and stories and things like that, so it's okay to have more content, but they have it broken up in chunks. They have the main categories on the top. They always have a way to get back to the main page, your top stories at the top, and then they break it down into those sections that we had at the top, so it's a little easier to chunk each little spot and digest. And they really don't give you tons and tons. They give you a few items, but if you go in here and you go to the life section, you're going to find out more in depth. So they're expanding just like we were talking about before. All right, now let's look at something else that may have gone a little too far. This is a company selling Hawaii products, and I am pretty much confused on what and where everything is. It looks like they put everything they have on the front page. They've got so much information that it is quite difficult to really navigate around. You can kind of tell we've got some main areas over here if we're going to go look at coffee or different things like that. But even when we get in here, there's so much on this page that it is just an overload. Maybe if you were familiar with it or you were looking for something specific, you might put up with it. But in general, this might be more than any of us wants. So it can be overwhelming. Some things that they do have that I think every website should have are some main links at the bottom. They've got their contact information. They've got about shipping, the storefront, currency converters, terms and conditions and all that. But then they have some of these things that are popping up and taking over. They really get to be annoying. So when you're designing a site, make sure that some of the things you add aren't impeding your customers' ability to buy things. And probably the most important thing I've ever seen is the contact information. And this is probably their best page as far as where they're located, the weather, information like that, addresses, names, numbers, telephone. I can find out information from them. That's the one thing that I think everybody really needs when they're designing a good website. Let's look at one that I'm going to say probably looks like somebody in their very first year made this, but this is actually the Yale University School of Art, and it is simpler. There's not as much stuff there, but they've got this big Christmas background and these faded colors and just chunks and blocks, and it's not a real polished site. So if I was looking to go to this school and it's a school of art, this may not be something that I want to check out. And then they've got enough options here on the side that it gets to be a little more than what we probably want. So looking at those, we've kind of looked at some things that are good, some things that are bad. Simple websites are some of the hardest to do. The more complicated ones, like this one, are really awesome. They're easy to follow to a point, but it also takes a lot of time to go in and view these. So some of these sites, they got to have a real purpose. And here we're kind of looking at, something art to get your ideas and real examples of Flash. This might be something that I would expect from that, art school or something like that. And because it's so interesting and there's so much stuff going on, I may be more interested to wait for some of these things to load. And so as you get to designing and you can put these little fun things, you say, well, there's a gate. Well, I know that's something I want to click on. And then magically I get transported into this little land. And it really becomes part of the show. The nice thing about this design is they also have the skip at the bottom. And so if you don't want to watch all this video, you can skip it every time, or you can watch their little animations in Flash, and it's a really cool design. So each website has its own purpose, has different things it's going to do. And I think it's worth checking out. So have some fun, think about design, think about what you like, what you don't like, what's out there, and we'll see where you guys go from here.